Hello, everybody. Welcome. Good morning. Thanks for joining us for ACN's weekly flash webinars. I'm Lydia Varesco-Racoma of Lydia Varesco Design. I'm also the VP of Marketing and Communications for ACN, and we're happy to have you here. And we're very happy today to have Dina Lewis of Distilled Logic. She's going to be talking about content marketing tips for right now, which I know is on everybody's mind. Dina is a content strategy consultant and coach. She hosts Content Forum, which is a content strategy community for associations and nonprofits. I'm a member. It's great. You definitely want to check it out. She's also host of reviewmycontent.com, which is a review site for content tools and services. And she's one of the principal researchers for the 2019 ASAE Foundation Study, Association Content Strategies for a Changing World. Welcome, Dina. We are looking forward to hearing your presentation.
Thanks, Lydia. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I'm excited to be here and thank you very much for inviting me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So my focus on the content marketing tips for right now is pretty much based on a post I did on Content Forum a couple of weeks ago. In this community, folks from associations, nonprofits, and consultants to associations and nonprofits were obviously talking about the COVID-19 crisis and just how communications, member outreach, and marketing was happening, the good and the bad, some of the lessons learned, and then this whole idea of the transition that we're now in, now that we've been in the lockdown situation for at least 5 or 6 weeks, depending on where you are. I'm in Washington, D.C., so we're in, I think it's week 6 right now. So I'm really interested in sharing with you today the perspective of content marketing from a content strategy perspective, based on some of the information and ideas that have been shared by associations and corporations and the learnings that we can take from that. So before we jump in, I want to put out this definition of content strategy because I know there are a lot out there. And through my work with the ASAE Foundation and the research that I did with my colleagues, Carrie Hain and Hillary Marsh, we put this definition of content strategy out there and based our research on it. So we're going to unpack this a little bit today as we look at the different aspects of content marketing. So content strategy is plainly the planning and judgment for the creation, publication, dissemination, and governance of useful, usable content across departments and functional areas. So that's kind of the whole encompassing statement that kind of overarches all the tactics and activities around content. Now, from a consultant's perspective, we produce a lot of content on many different channels. These are just some of them. I'm sure some of you have other content that you produce in other channels you may use, but I think the thing that we identified in the research for associations too is that they're in the publishing business. And I think as consultants, particularly in this field, to promote the knowledge and information that we want to share, we obviously use content in different ways to do that. So whether it's articles that you write, posts that you make on your blogs, the email marketing that you do, the webinars like this, or the videos that you produce, or the education, all of that is considered content. And then from our research, and this is something that might be helpful to think about with your clients, in getting them to understand the breadth of content and information that they are producing and publishing in their organizations, and all the different content delivery channels that they're challenged to use and maintain and measure to see how that content is performing. So again, this is just a little bit of baseline setting, just so we understand what we're going to be talking about in the examples.
One quick question from our audience, Dina,
Sure.
from Elizabeth the Richter. She mentions there is so much out there about the virus itself. Would it be redundant to add any virus-specific content, leaving that to medical sources?
Yeah, we're going to talk about a little bit about that in the examples today, this whole idea of moving from the reaction to the crisis to the transition. And I think referencing reliable, trustworthy sources is definitely at the root of being recognized as reliable content yourself. I know that even a lot of the scientific associations that I work with are linking to the Johns Hopkins data, for example, because that is a credible source that's out there and being used by the medical profession. So anything that you reference should be well vetted, for sure. Now, this very simple visual that I created illustrates a little bit that post I mentioned that I made on Content Forum. This whole idea of reacting to the initial crisis and kind of what was happening at the time when we didn't know a lot of information or the duration actually of what this was really going to be. And then this idea of a transition from kind of the initial shock and the action that was taking place to what was happening now. And then always with a view to what the new normal might be. Obviously, we don't know what that is yet, and I think that is the biggest challenge. But one of the respondents to the post mentioned it's kind of like the reactions change either daily, weekly, or monthly, right? Something happens every day. That was happening a lot in this reaction time where you didn't know what was happening. You were being shelled with information and news, and it was just like a fire hose coming at you. And recognizing that you were in that position may have helped the content marketing that you were doing at that time. How precise could you be? How could you differ your message to make it stand out from everything that was pouring in? Now that we're in this, what I feel is this transition phase, we're beyond kind of the things that are happening every day, and it's more like a weekly attitude or a weekly change that you're facing. You're getting new information, things are transitioning depending on where you are in the country or what your clients' audiences are, right? If they are a medical association, obviously their members might be very stressed right now. If they're a retail-based trade organization, obviously they're dealing with numerous challenges. But then there's the whole human factor of just us as people, not just members of the organization. So recognizing your clients' needs from that standpoint, from a very empathetic standpoint, is also important. And then thinking about what the new normal might be, again, depending on where you are in the country, who your client base is, and who those clients are serving, will affect what that new normal is going forward. So tying back to the content strategy idea, as I alluded to before, when we're in reaction mode, the planning that has gone into the content that you either already have or that you want to create becomes super important. Judgment, which is another factor and layer of content strategy, definitely applies, and that goes to the question that was received. How much do you share and what type of information do you share relevant to the disease and to the crisis itself? And then finally, what is the useful, usable content that you have as consultants that can aid your members or that can aid your clients and their members in the work that they do? One of the folks, an association exec that responded to the post, said the reality is, regardless of you're in crisis reaction mode or in transition mode, your users' professional interest remains the same. So I would say, as that applies to us as consultants, our client interest remains the same. They're looking for aid and assistance for whatever service that you provide. So what useful, usable content do you have about the services that you provide that can either be reworked and applied to the state that they're currently in and the information that they need? Or what can you create that's new and provide to them to affect and serve their needs right now? So let's look at what some of the initial reactions were. From the association standpoint, very quickly, a lot of associations spun up this COVID resources type page of information. And some of you may have done that yourself, depending on the services that you provide to your clients. The thing that I liked about this naop.org example was that besides providing resources, they were also collecting user-generated content with this share your expertise area and in your own words. So they were soliciting information from their members about what was happening on the ground. That becomes invaluable because it becomes a resource that you can use to create more content to share with others. And it also is a reliable source because your members are providing it from their on-the-ground experiences. So I thought that was really a clever way of adding a layer on top of just the traditional collection or curation of content and information that was happening at the time. Another organization, again, from a frontline standpoint, was AIHA. These are the industrial hygiene specialists, the people that keep workplaces clean. So you could imagine what's going on with their membership right now. So they established this outbreak resource center, and again, were providing information about how AIHA was kind of leading the way and sharing the information among their membership and raising the visibility of the work, obviously, that they were doing during the crisis period. And then finally, in Chicago, one of the nonprofit groups, which obviously is supplying an audience that's in need all of the time, was addressing specific updates that the crisis and the challenges that the crisis put upon them. So reassuring people that food pantries were still available and giving them direct access to find programs right away, but also advising them that they might want to call ahead just because of the crisis and the impact that that was having on the normal operations. So again, with the plan in place, they had the information available, they had the technology set up to get the information out to their membership or their constituents. So from your standpoint, think about it from that perspective too. Now, another reaction, this was something that was shared on Twitter by Christina Halverson, who's really the content strategy guru, who identified this as an area of practice for user experience. She posted this Twitter post that this group called NewsCred did right at the beginning of the crisis. And they were positioning content marketing as an opportunity to change your marketing budget to accelerate your pipeline. There are a lot of things wrong with the way they position their messaging here. The picture itself, where people are wearing masks, but it's still a large group. The idea of accelerating your pipeline and that should be a goal when a crisis is happening. So she tweeted about it and a lot of people piled on. The good news is that even though this company made a mistake, they owned it. And the CEO, as you can see here, replied and explained kind of their rationale. And it was a 3-tweet thread where he explained how they changed things, how they were now contributing back to the community in New York once they saw the crisis exploding there. So again, judgment was not good here when the original thing was posted, but the response when they realized they made a mistake was, because they owned up to it, they made some adjustments, and then they also tried to compensate by that, which they may have done anyway, on obviously, because they were in the New York City community. But they shared that information back with people that they were doing some good in response to the crisis situation. Another reaction that came out that kind of hit with a thud to me was this whole idea of every company in the world deciding that they needed to react to the crisis. Now, I don't know what a truck and car company is going to do to help me at this time. I actually don't. Our family doesn't own a car. We live in the city. But regardless, it's tone deaf in a way, right? Another message that came out reaction wise, and I can't believe I'm congratulating Facebook for anything, but when I saw this ad, and I don't know if you guys saw it, you can go to YouTube and look it up, We're Never Lost, but it was a 1.5-minute ad that started appearing on TV and streaming about We're Never Lost. And it was just showing these really intense pictures of empty spaces and people during the initial phases of the crisis. And not until about 1 minute and 15 seconds in did they say something about face. And that's when it clicked on me. And I thought, oh my God, I think this might be Facebook. And sure enough, it was. But the brand information was not obvious at the beginning. But I find it wild that I thought of it before it was actually acknowledged. So I think they took a really good approach marketing wise to take the activities that were happening, the things that people were feeling emotionally, and captured it in a 90-second snippet and kept our brand strong. As we go to this transition phase, some other things that I saw happening were campaigns. So the Club Management Association of America has a CMAA Strong campaign on social media, where their members are sharing the good deeds that they're doing, even though a lot of their facilities are closed. Another organization has let people into their homes with staff members, just like we're doing today, by saying, we're still working for you. So they've kind of crossed the line from the office to the inside of the home and kind of broke down that wall. So that's what I see as really interesting going forward, how we're going to carry that transition. Another one that we saw was with Chesapeake Bay Foundation and the coronavirus, and how they've treated it. Again, in answer to that earlier question, is they've highlighted the educational information that they have to help parents or caregivers at home who now have their kids at home, and sharing that information that they can work into their lesson plans. A nonprofit is using Instagram. This is a Common Good City Farm, which is a local farm that allows low-income members of the community to not only grow their food there, but if they work on the farm, they can take the food home. So obviously people can't go and do that right now, but they're still showing you the progress of them planting the trees at the farm and providing updates to their community until they can come back. And finally, here's a corporate ad that I think did well, Jake from State Farm, where they announced the fact that they were rebating back, I think it was 15% of your insurance rates through the end of May, recognizing that people obviously weren't going to be driving as much during this time. So again, it's another opportunity to kind of think about what you do, the information and knowledge that you provide, and how you can put a twist on it and kind of show how you're going to acknowledge what's happening, but also continue to deliver those that knowledge and information and those services that your clients are expecting of you, because they are still operating. As far as influencing the new normal, I included the Common Good City Farm here too, again, because I feel like they are keeping an eye on the prize, what their mission is, which is to serve the community. So they're showing that they're continuing to focus on that. A corporation that I think did a good job of that, again with another streaming and media commercial, was Frito-Lay, where it wasn't about, you know, we're providing chips to healthcare workers or whatever, but they're influencing the new normal because they're creating new full-time jobs, which are going to help people that are currently unemployed or concerned that they may be looking for work. And then they're also illustrating their commitment as a society member by contributing more than $15 million to COVID relief efforts. So again, I think applying that human and empathetic factor to your brand helps in the long run, not only for society as a whole, but it just sticks to your brand that you care about the community that you're serving. Here's another one that I think is a good influence the new normal. This is a food nonprofit based in, I think, California. This is another member of Content Forum. So they're saying, okay, we're not only providing food, but we're sharing information with you because we know people might not be able to get food as regularly or as often as they typically do. So here's some tips on how to buy products that will stay fresh longer. And here's how to keep them staying fresh so your family isn't required to go to the grocery store as often. And then finally, here's an example from the American Society for Microbiology that went beyond just COVID resources. They are now demonstrating how they are curating research to help find solutions to the crisis, whether it's controlling the virus, hopefully finding a cure down the road, but also just how their members are helping with the treatment processes going forward. So again, this is another marketing opportunity to show what you're doing. I'm sharing this resource from bobangus.com. I think this is a good framework for a marketing calendar. If you don't have one now, and I didn't for about 10 years of the 14 years of my company, but once I started delivering more services beyond just consulting, like spinning up the Content Forum community and now launching Review My Content, I need to have a better handle on what I'm going to do when. So I think this roadmap approach and this calendar approach that they're using gives you a good framework to think about how you want to either seasonally or topically address needs of your client base. So I definitely recommend going and downloading this. Yes, you have to give your name and email, but you can opt out of the list afterwards. So just as kind of a wrap up and harking back to the content strategy perspective, the marketing tips are knowing your brand and staying true to it, even in the times of crisis or transition. Knowing your audience is super important. Giving them what they need when they need it will help them remember you, again, whether it's just times of normal operation or times of crisis. And then making the plan and working the plan, but ultimately doing good. And you can read this both ways. Do good in your business, which I guess should really be do well, or do good for society. So if there are things that you can contribute and offer right now to make things easier for your clients or just for your community at large, we obviously should be doing that always, but this time more than ever. Okay.
This was great, Dina. This is awesome. I just put a little note in the chat to see if we have any more questions. A few people have been asking about slides. So we will, ACN usually shares the webinar replay. So if that's okay with you, Dina. Otherwise, here is Dina's information if anybody wants to reach out to her directly. And follow her on the social channels. And in the meantime, we're going to wait a couple more minutes, see if there are any more questions. I have a quick question as far as content, as far as maybe reusing content that you have posted in the past.
Yes.
Any tips for kind of analyzing that content to know, you know, should I share it now? Is this not the right time to reshare it?
Yeah, I think it's definitely time to reshare your content. I think going back and looking at what you've done in blog posts before or webinar content that you've created that you can pull tidbits out of. Honestly, the thing I'm trying now that is being semi-successful, and I mean that because it's early, is trying new channels for my content. I'm not super comfortable on video. I don't mind doing these webinars and things like that, but just kind of firing up the camera and talking, I really want to improve on that. So I think if you just take a blog post that you did or a portion of a webinar that you offered in the past that you think has a good nugget of information that your clients might be able to use, try to just do a 1 minute or 90-second video and publish it out. Start a YouTube channel or publish it on Instagram Live, something like that, that just gives you some different exposure on a different channel perhaps. And it might get you more eyeballs on that content than you would typically get just from your website.
That's really great advice. Thank you, Dina. I know that a lot of people have been talking about video lately since video is so popular in general and people are on their phones more and watching video content. So that's a really, really great tip for repurposing. I personally, I've been trying to repurpose more content. I know that's recommended, so I appreciate hearing that. Let's see, I think we've got one more question. Rashida asks, let's see, she's thinking about ways to support clients after this whole thing has passed. I think that's a great question, just kind of thinking like how, maybe you sort of touched upon that, the transitioning and where we'll be in our new normal and how we'll be adjusting our content for new normal.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I'm really a proponent of trying to influence what that new normal might be. So I think looking at some of the examples I shared, but just keeping your eye out for that too when you're seeing other brands doing things like that, I think it's really important because I think we're at a time in a crisis like this where people are more forgiving. So I think that helps us as entrepreneurial consultants when we are trying new channels on things, even if it might not be perfect. Don't let that be the enemy of the good. So also think about that influencing what's your new normal is going to be going forward. So if you're thinking about a new service or a new way of delivering to your clients, you should try that now because it may get traction with a new audience that you haven't had before or resonate with your existing clients to get some repurposed business too.
That's great. And you brought up a really good point about looking at what other organizations are doing, which is what I actually have been doing with email marketing. I created a folder and I've been saving all of the really great crisis communication responses that I've received via email. But now you've inspired me to do the same for content, you know, to just kind of keep a file of who's doing really great things as inspiration for now and for the future.
And one thing I wanted to suggest to ACN, this is something that a subgroup of ASAE consultants have been doing over the past month. We just started a Google Doc with all of our resources. So regardless of who you are, whatever type of consultant you are, if there was anything that we thought would be helpful to associations at this point in time, we put it up in this spreadsheet. So it could be a webinar you did on how to work from home or you know, anything that's related to what people might be dealing with in this crisis, and just created a whole laundry list. I think the ACN membership probably has a plethora of ideas like that. And it could be something you post on your website and promote to the association world so they can see that.
That's fantastic. Oh my gosh, I'm definitely going to be the one launching that because we do have such a huge community of content within our consultants. We've got a lot of great guest blog posts and webinars. So
yeah,
that's
I'll
wonderful.
send you the link so you can see what we did and then just riff off of that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining us. It looks like we are good with our questions here. We need to let Dina go because she's actually hosting a content forum, weekly content chat right now in a minute. So we appreciate that she was able to squeeze us in. And thank you again. And her info is here. And I'm going to quickly put up our ACN upcoming events so that we can see what's coming up. We've got a couple of Ask a Consultant sessions that are coming up. These are our sessions where our ACN consultants talk to nonprofits about things that is on their mind, that they have, the concerns that they have right now. So we have one coming up next week, one coming up the week after, And June 16th is our ACN annual meeting. And you can find out more information at acnconsult.org/events-ACN. And thank you again so much, Dina. Great to see you. I'll see you in the chat. Hopefully I can make my way over there shortly. And thanks everybody for joining us today.